Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India News Hour, India's voice to the world. I'm Preeti Kaur. Coming up in the next 1 hour. Prime Minister Narendra Modi becomes the first Indian to get Mauritius' highest honor, says Mauritius' family, and links India to a wider global south. Ukraine agrees to ceasefire proposal with Russia for the initial 30 days. US puts the onus of securing peace and ceasefire on Russia. US markets in turmoil as ambiguity remains about the tariffs. US and Canada trade angry warnings as 25% levy set to come to play by midnight. Trump halts plans for 50% tariffs after talks with Canada. Pakistan security forces claim to have rescued over 100 people after Baloch separatists hijacked train. BLA claims the hostage operation as tense standoff continues. Voting ends in Greenland election dominated by Trump's control pledge. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi, who is in Mauritius, is set to attend the country's 57th National Day celebrations today as the chief guest. On the occasion of the National Day, a contingent of the Indian Defence Forces will participate in the celebrations. There will be a ship from the Indian Navy that will be present in Mauritius for the occasion, and in addition, the Indian Air Force's Akash Ganga skydiving team will also participate in the ceremonies. Prime Minister Narendra Modi, along with his Mauritius counterpart Ramgoolam, will inaugurate a few projects that have been implemented with Indian assistance and will also witness the signing of several MOUs on cooperation in the field of capacity building, bilateral trade, tackling of cross-border financial crimes and promoting small and medium enterprises. Later in the day, Prime Minister Narendra Modi will visit Ganga Talao or Grand Basin, a significant Hindu pilgrimage site. There, he will also offer prayers. Earlier on Tuesday, Prime Minister Narendra Modi received a grand ceremonial welcome on his arrival in Mauritius. Akshay Dongre and Tripti Tripathi get us more on this.
Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi touched down at Port Louis to a grand reception received personally by his Mauritian counterpart, Dr. Naveen Chandra Ramgoolam. A ceremonial guard of honor was accorded to him. Adding to the celebratory spirit, over 200 dignitaries gathered at the airport, reflecting the deep-rooted bond between the two democracies. A special moment unfolded as the Indian diaspora welcomed PM Modi with the traditional Bihari Geet Gawai performance, a folk art that symbolizes the cultural heritage of Indian migrants in Mauritius. The visit continued to the historic Sivusagar Ramgoolam Botanical Garden, where PM Modi and PM Ramgoolam paid tribute to two towering leaders of Mauritius, Sivusagar Ramgoolam and Anirudh Jagannath, for their immense contributions to the nation's progress. In a symbolic gesture, PM Modi planted a bale sapling under the Ek Ped Maa Ke Naam initiative, an effort to honor mothers by promoting environmental conservation. This marks yet another step in his global greening mission. At the State House, Prime Minister Modi met Mauritian President Dharambir Gokul, where the two leaders discussed ways to deepen bilateral ties. PM Modi gifted the holy Sangam water from Mahakumbh and Bihar's nutritious superfood makhana to the Mauritian president. A touch of Indian elegance was added with the traditional Banarasi sari gifted to the First Lady of Mauritius. PM Modi also visited the Ayurvedic garden, a testament to India-Mauritius collaboration in traditional medicine. This initiative strengthened ties in the field of holistic healing, reinforcing a shared commitment to preserving ancient knowledge. From cultural heritage to strategic partnerships, PM Modi's visit to Mauritius reaffirmed the deep-rooted connection between the two nations. With Akshay Dongre, Tripti Tripathi's report for DD India.
India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi was awarded the country's topmost civilian honour. During the event, Prime Minister Modi announced the issuance of Overseas Citizen of India cards to the Mauritian diaspora. The decision marked India's commitment to the diaspora and the bilateral relations with Mauritius.
A grand evening at the Trianon Convention Centre in Mauritius turned even more special as Prime Minister Narendra Modi attended a cultural event celebrating the deep-rooted ties between India and Mauritius. The highlight of the evening, Mauritius conferring its highest civilian honour, the Grand Commander of the Order of the Star and Key of the Indian Ocean, upon India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi. With this, PM Modi is the first Indian to receive this prestigious award, joining a select group of global leaders including Nelson Mandela.
I should also announce to everybody here today that I've asked the President of the Republic to award to you, Sri Modi, the highest award that we have, Grand Commander of the Order of the Star. Grand Commander of the Order of the Star and Key of the Indian Ocean, very fitting for you, Prime Minister.
Humbly accepting the honour, PM Modi dedicated the award to the Indian diaspora in Mauritius.
ये भारत और मॉरिशस के ऐतिहासिक रिश्तों का सम्मान है। ये उन भारतीयों का सम्मान है जिन्होंने पीढ़ी दर पीढ़ी इस धरती की खूब सेवा की।
In a symbolic gesture of shared heritage, PM Modi handed over the Overseas Citizen of India cards or the OCI cards to PM Naveen Ramgoolam and his spouse Veena Ramgoolam. Notably, OCI eligibility has now been extended to the seventh generation of the Indian diaspora. Addressing the gathering, PM Modi emphasized the unwavering bilateral ties and described Mauritius as mini India.
For us, Mauritius is family. This bond is deep and strong, rooted in history, heritage, and the human spirit. Mauritius is also a bridge connecting India to the wider global south.
Strengthening the bond further, PM Modi reaffirmed India's commitments to Mauritius's development, highlighting key collaborative projects in infrastructure, healthcare, and digital transformation.
Mauritius, with large ocean territories, needs to secure its resources from illegal fishing, piracy, and crimes. As a trusted and reliable friend, India works with Mauritius to protect your national interests and secure the Indian Ocean region.
PM Modi's message was clear. India and Mauritius are not just partners, but family, bound by history, culture, and a shared vision for the future. With India playing a key role in Mauritius's growth through developmental projects, trade, and capacity building initiatives, the relationship stands as a model of deep mutual trust and cooperation. With Akshay Dongre, Bureau Report, DD India.
Prime Minister will also visit Ganga Talao, also known as Grand Basin. It is revered as Mauritius's most significant Hindu pilgrimage site, and it symbolizes the Ganges River of India. The holy waters of Ganga Talao were infused with water from the Ganges River in 1972. The lake is surrounded by temples dedicated to Lord Shiva, Lord Ganesh and Lord Hanuman. The Shiva temple at Ganga Talao is believed to be the 13th Jyotirling, also known as Mauritius Eswarnath Jyotirling, according to local legend. It was established in 1897 by Pandit Jhumon Giri. During the visit of India's President Draupadi Murmu to Mauritius in 2024, it was announced that the government of India will support the redevelopment of Ganga Talao complex into a religious, cultural and tourist hub. DD India's correspondent Akshay Dongre spoke with the trustee and caretaker of the sacred lake in Mauritius on the significance of Ganga Talao.
We are currently at Ganga Talab in Mauritius, one of the most revered spiritual and religious sites. And to talk about how this place is significant, we also have Mr. Satish Dayal with us. Sir, thank you so much for speaking with us. There is a lot of interest as far as the Ganga Talab is concerned. Many people also consider the temple here as the 13th Jyotirlinga as well in India too. So as the Prime Minister is arriving here in Mauritius, there is a lot of interest as far as India is concerned and in the world as well that these kind of places exist in Mauritius. So can you tell us about the significance of this Ganga Talab?
The Ganga Talab is a very important place, a spiritually revered place as you mentioned it. It is a Tirthistan, a place of pilgrimage too. And recently it has been declared as a heritage, a spiritual heritage too. For the Hindu, it is a great symbol.
Right.
It is a great symbol because Ganga Talab is a sacred lake. In spite of being a sacred lake, it's a volcanic lake too. And it is a natural lake.
Right.
For Hindu, it is a great symbolism, this lake itself. The two things at Ganga Talab is very important. One is the lake itself. Secondly, the world 13th Jyotirlinga is here. The 12 Jyotirlinga in India, it is the only one which is outside India. And it is considered as the main temple of the country. And very often we used to experience miraculous happenings. And the temple is very, very famous all throughout the world.
You heard all the significance of this Ganga Talab and like Mr. Dayal has explained to us in so many words that how special and pious this lake is and how Mauritius is perhaps the only country outside India that has a Jyotirlinga as well. With camera person Ajit Kumar, Amakshi Dongre, DD India.
Commemorating the 95th anniversary of the historic Salt March today, India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi paid homage to those who participated in the Dandi March, a defining chapter in India's freedom struggle. On 12th of March 1930, Mahatma Gandhi began his Dandi March from Sabarmati Ashram in western coastal state of Gujarat. The 24-day march from March 12th to April 5th, 1930 ended with the defiance of the law after he made salt at Dandi, marking the start of the civil disobedience movement. Taking to X, Prime Minister Modi said, and I quote, "Today we pay homage to all those who participated in the historic Dandi March, a defining chapter in India's freedom struggle. Led by Mahatma Gandhi, the march ignited a nationwide movement for self-reliance and independence. The courage, sacrifice and unwavering commitment to truth and non-violence of all those who took part in the Dandi March continues to inspire generations." During the historic march, Gandhiji briefly stopped in Mauritius in 1901 while travelling from South Africa to India. Hence, as a tribute to Mahatma Gandhi, Mauritius holds its National Day on the date of Dandi March. You're watching DD India News Hour. We're heading for a short break, but after the break, Romania to rerun presidential election, even as far-right politician Calin Georgescu barred from contesting. Tensions reported in Chile against a bill redistributing fishing quotas between industrial and small-scale fishing operations. Massive damage in central Florida as a tornado brings in heavy rains and winds.
Geopolitics and trade deals. Economic challenges amid development. Hard work and the path to prosperity. It's the economy always. Between walkers, money is what money does and says. Supply creates its own demand. Between the bulls pulls and bears tears. when supply chains globalization and India rises to the podium. We'll get you centered with the economic brief at 8 p.m. every Thursday on DD India.
Welcome back after the break. You're watching DD India News Hour. Let's get to updates on the sensational train hijacking in Pakistan. Pakistani forces have claimed to rescue over 100 people after Baloch separatists blew away a railway track and took 450 hostages, including Pakistani army personnel. Pakistan's Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif has condemned the attack, saying security officials were repelling the separatists. As negotiations and rescue efforts continue, the Pakistani government faces immense pressure to secure the release of the hostages while preventing further violence. The Jafar Express had been on its way from Balochistan's capital Quetta to the city of Peshawar in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province when it was fired and separatists took control. In a historic development, Syria's Kurdish-led Syrian Democratic Forces agreed to integrate into the country's state institutions under a deal signed with interim President Ahmed al-Shara. The agreement marks a major step towards uniting the war-torn nation after more than a decade of conflict. Celebrations broke out in the cities of Damascus and Qamishli as citizens welcomed the accord. Here's more on the story.
Celebrations erupted in Syria's capital Damascus and the northeastern city of Qamishli after Kurdish-led Syrian Democratic Forces, or the SDF, signed an agreement with the interim government to integrate into Syria's state institutions. Crowds filled the streets, chanting slogans of unity as the deal marked a major step towards stabilizing the war-torn country.
The people needed an agreement like this. The world is tired of displacement and war. So we are happy with the agreement because it will bring peace to a new democratic Syria.
The agreement signed by interim President Ahmed al-Shara and SDF commander Mazloum Abdi formally ends years of Kurdish self-administration in the northeast. Under the accord, all civilian and military institutions in SDF-held areas will come under the Syrian state, restoring government control over key border crossings, airports and vital oil and gas fields. The deal is part of Shara's broader effort to unify the country following the overthrow of former President Bashar al-Assad in December. Since taking power, Syria's new administration has faced challenges from pro-Assad loyalists and also foreign-backed insurgencies, along with sporadic violence threatening national stability. The recent surge in violence has been particularly severe in western Syria, where pro-Assad militias clashed with government forces. Reports suggest over 1,000 civilians, mostly from the Alawite minority, have been killed in this unrest. The agreement also has significant geopolitical implications. Turkey, which has long opposed the SDF due to its ties with the Kurdish YPG militia, may view the deal as a threat. Ankara previously conducted cross-border operations against Kurdish fighters and continues to support armed groups in northern Syria that frequently clash with the SDF forces. Despite these concerns, the deal is being hailed as a crucial step in Syria's post-war transition. By bringing the SDF under state control, the government hopes to consolidate power and move toward long-term stability. However, the success of this integration will depend on how regional actors, particularly Turkey and the remaining pro-Assad factions, respond in the coming weeks. Nancy Baloda's report for DD India.
Romanian far-right politician Calin Georgescu on Tuesday stepped short of endorsing any other potential candidate after being definitely barred from standing in May's presidential election rerun. Whether another far-right candidate succeeds in swaying Georgescu's voters will determine whether another Central European country swings closer to Moscow, besides Hungary and Slovakia, in the election scheduled on May 4th and May 18th. Georgescu ran as an independent in the last year's presidential election, which was annulled in December by the country's top court due to undeclared funding and suspicion of Russian meddling in his favor, denied by Moscow and Georgescu. In a separate message on Facebook addressing his supporters, he struck a conciliatory tone and urged them to follow their conscience when supporting another candidate while not immediately endorsing anyone. With polling stations closed in Greenland, the world is waiting for the results of parliamentary election brought into the international spotlight by US President Donald Trump's pledge to take control of the island. We get to more in this report.
just 40,500 voters. Capital city with only one polling station. These tiny numbers in any elections normally won't merit any reaction or interest. Yet, the legislative polls of Greenland have evoked excitement across the globe like never before. World is watching the polls and waiting for the results of this icy nation with surmounted interest, thanks to US President Donald Trump's repeated overtures to make it a part of his nation. Turnout was higher than expected in the sole polling station in the capital, New, possibly due to what is being called a Trump effect. The voting timings were extended to accommodate increased numbers. Trump, who has said he is determined to get the vast Arctic island one way or the other, tried until the last minute to influence the vote, promising to make them rich if they become part of the USA. The lead up to the election to choose the 31-seat parliament was mostly marked by debates on healthcare, education, and future ties with Denmark, which still controls the island's foreign, defense, and monetary policy. All of Greenland's main political parties back independence but disagree on the time frame. Bureau Report, DD India.
Portugal's centre-right government has lost a confidence vote in parliament, potentially pushing the European Union country towards its third general election in 3 years. Portugal's parliament rejected a motion of confidence in the centre-right minority government, provoking its collapse after only 11 months in office. Lawmakers voted 142 to 88 with 0 abstentions against the motion that was presented last Thursday by Prime Minister Luis Montenegro after the opposition questioned his integrity over the dealings of a consultancy firm he founded, which is now run by his sons. His administration now assumes a caretaker role. Montenegro has denied wrongdoing on any ethical shortcomings by the firm, which has contracts with private companies. It is now up to President Marcelo Rebelo de Sousa whether to call a new parliamentary election after a round of consultations that are likely to take place in the next few days. He has said a new ballot could be held in mid-May. The captain of a cargo ship has been arrested after it collided with an oil tanker in the North Sea. The Portuguese-flagged Solong and the US-registered tanker Stena Immaculate crashed off the East Yorkshire coast on Monday. UK police said the 59-year-old man had been arrested on suspicion of gross negligence and manslaughter following searches for a missing crew member of the Solong. Smoke is continuing to billow from the Solong ship, but Transport Secretary Hedy Alexander said that both ships were expected to remain afloat. A criminal investigation has begun into the cause of the collision. Clouds of uncertainty looming over the fate of Russia-Ukraine conflict seems to be diminishing as Ukraine accepted US-brokered 30-day ceasefire proposal and to hold immediate negotiations with Russia during peace talks in Saudi Arabia's Jeddah. While leaders hail Ukraine's decision, President Donald Trump is set to hold a meeting with both the parties soon. A detailed report ahead.
United States' 30-day ceasefire proposal marked a pivotal decision in the ongoing conflict between Russia and Ukraine, as top US and Ukrainian officials held talks in Saudi Arabia's Jeddah, aiming to move ahead towards ending the 3-year-long conflict. In a significant development, Ukraine has agreed to accept the ceasefire proposal and to hold immediate negotiations with Russia, a step towards restoring a durable peace, according to a joint US-Ukraine statement on Tuesday.
It is indeed written there that Ukraine is ready to accept, if Russia agrees to it. To introduce a 30-day ceasefire is the first step in order to start preparing some more important document to prepare for negotiations.
The statement further said that the two sides have also agreed to conclude a comprehensive agreement for developing Ukraine's critical mineral resource soon. Also, the United States have agreed to resume military aid and intelligence sharing with Ukraine. US President Donald Trump lauded the decision at Jeddah talks, while affirming hope that Russia will also agree to it in a meeting with their officials soon. Trump also mentioned that he will invite the Ukrainian president again to the White House.
Ukraine. Ceasefire, just agreed to a little while ago. Now we have to go to Russia and hopefully President Putin will agree to that also. We're going to meet with him later on today and tomorrow, and hopefully we'll be able to wipe out a deal. But I think the ceasefire is very important.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky also hailed the offer, saying that the ceasefire was a positive proposal that covers the front line in the conflict, not just fighting by air and sea.
The American side proposed taking a first step forward, establishing a full ceasefire for 30 days. Not just stopping missiles, drones, and bombs, not just ensuring security in the Black Sea, but implementing a complete ceasefire along the entire front line. Ukraine welcomes this proposal.
US Secretary of Staff Marco Rubio said that now the offer will be taken to the Russians and that the ball is now in Moscow's court.
Today we made an offer that the Ukrainians have accepted, which is to enter into a ceasefire and into immediate negotiations to end this conflict in a way that's enduring and sustainable. Hopefully we'll take this offer now to the Russians. And we hope that they'll say yes to peace. The ball is now in their court.
Leaders of the European Union welcomed Ukraine's decision to accept the US ceasefire proposal. European Council President Antonio Costa, European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen, and French President Emmanuel Macron calls it a positive progress towards a comprehensive, just and lasting peace for Ukraine. With these significant US-brokered steps taken at the Jeddah talks, President Trump seems to have been on track to fulfill his promises made to end the Ukraine conflict. Bureau Report, DD India.
All right, our correspondent Anil Thomas is joining us from Delhi to get us more on this important story as we tell you that the fate of Russia-Ukraine crisis conflict could be diminishing now as the Ukraine has accepted US brokered 30-day ceasefire proposal. Let's go to our correspondent Anil Thomas. Anil, good morning. Tell us more about this ceasefire. We tell our viewers that it's a 30-day ceasefire proposal. What more do we know about it? Spell out more details.
Morning. Well, good morning, Preeti. Well, very much on expected lines, this particular ceasefire that Ukraine has agreed. Remember, just 11 days before at the Oval Office, the way things ended, it almost looked like, Ukraine could be looking at some longer hauls when it comes to these kind of proposals coming back on the table. I think it's, with Trump handling the United States of America, one thing is certain, you just cannot say that something is over and out. He's managed to get Ukraine back not only after 11 days, but also look at the Jeddah talks and the ceasefire that's been planned. It's now, the ball is in Russia's court. Will Vladimir Putin bite the bullet in agreeing on signing on this dotted line? For the simple reason that Ukraine is also counter-attacked. There are close to 350 plus drones that have been shot at a city near Moscow by Ukraine. But putting all this into perspective, it's a positive step in the right direction. If a ceasefire is taken, if a ceasefire is signed on the dotted line by both the parties, that includes no offensive by sea, by land, or by air, it could augur well for Ukraine because Ukraine is looking for a sigh of relief. And that's not all. The lifting of, the freeze on humanitarian as well as military aid that was coming into Ukraine, that begins again. And that is the only positive that Ukraine can look forward to. Because remember, long with all that was planned is off the table. Either Russia would agree to that. But yes, losing 20% of your land to Russia, because there are many areas that Russia is annexed, that could be a cause of concern for Ukraine, especially for Zelensky. If things look better, there could be elections down the line, and that could not go well for Zelensky to manage.
All right, Anil, now the US has put the onus of securing peace and ceasefire on Russia. Having said that, the timing of this, of the ceasefire coming after the verbal spat, after the showdown between Trump and Zelensky in Washington, how do you read this? Put all this together.
Well, Preeti, this was something that's got the world off guard, if one may say so. 11 days before, as I said, this looked done and dusted. But that's the magic of Trump, I believe, once again, to get people back on the table to talk. I think that's the big positive that Trump, along with its administration, can look forward to, for the simple reason they have managed to get Ukraine back. But now Trump has to do the heavy lifting, or doing the I would say the big belling, or rather the big, if one may say so. It's trying to get Putin to agree on a similar ceasefire. Remember, Zelensky, when he came to the Oval, also indicated that I am ready to follow all that you say, but can I trust Russia? I think getting to trust Russia on the saying of the United States is something that's going to be big. And I think the United States will have to assure not only Ukraine and Zelensky, but also the European Union, NATO, along with the other countries that have been, primarily involved in these talks or, have somewhere shown some keenness in getting or looking at an end to this conflict. I think it's going to be something that's monumental. But remember, till the time you don't see ceasefire for 30 days, I would still say it's a step in the right direction, but we'll have to wait and watch. There could be many counter punches that would follow from either sides, to this ceasefire.
All right, Anil, we've seen how this conflict has continued for more than 3 years now. Also, for the world to know of a ceasefire between Ukraine and Russia, it is more of a human angle. But then, as a reporter, I would want you to explain to our viewers what is at stake. You tell us about 20% of territory, Ukrainian territory annexed by Russia. Apart from this, what else is at stake when we talk of ceasefire or the conflict coming to an end? In the future ahead, in the future ahead, not to mix ceasefire and the conflict coming to an end here, but if we foresee the conflict coming to an end in the future, what is at stake?
Let's understand this in a very straight and simple manner. There are close to 7 million people who have left Ukraine after this eruption of this particular conflict between Russia and Ukraine. There are close to 4.5 million people that are displaced. With this conflict taking place, the areas that Russia has annexed, people who have not been able to leave the borders of the land have come rather inwards into Ukraine. I think that sums up the pressure that Zelensky faces. Remember, if you look at both the nations that are in this conflict, if Russia is on the back foot, I think Ukraine is on speed breakers. Let me put it that way. If Russia is in the hospital, Ukraine is in the ICU, to make things simple for our audience. I think that's where Ukraine stands. Ukraine has nothing to gain from this, except for the fact that there will be ceasefire, there will be some kind of semblance that comes into play. That's not all. Ukraine gets military as well as humanitarian aid that flows in, that Russia has frozen, that will start coming in, along with all the European countries that are helping them, when it comes to humanitarian as well as military aid. But remember, US supplies the maximum military aid to Russia, military aid to Ukraine as compared to the European Union. When one takes a look at purely in terms of numbers, there is more of military aid that US has given as compared to humanitarian aid to Ukraine. And I think Ukraine understands the importance of it. Let's also understand that Ukraine has time and again spoken about Putin not to be trusted, especially when it comes to this. And this particular, conflict that you're talking about, the world knows it from 2022, Feb 22nd, 2022, when this conflict started. That's almost 3 years that we have seen this conflict take place. But let's not forget that, the annexation of Crimea that began in 2014. So this is not a 3-year story or an ordeal that Ukraine is facing. It's almost 11 years that Ukraine has been facing, time and again, promises being made, promises being broken. And I think Zelensky has, points to worry, causes to worry, especially when it comes to trusting Putin. I think US will have an important role to play, because if the way US brings Russia to the table and makes Russia sign on the dotted line, then follows all the promises made, is something that's going to be a tightrope walking for United States, for Russia, even for Ukraine. I think that's where, the big play out would be seen. That's why I said we have moved 2 steps in the right direction. Can we move 2 more forward is something that the world will be looking forward to.
All right, Anil, you tell us how US has made Russia come to the talking table. I would want you to speak more on this. This comes after the verbal spat between Zelensky and Trump in Washington. Having said that, do you see, and we've also seen how there has been an abrupt change of stance of the US in this conflict. Put all this together, how do you see this change of stance continuing in the future with regard especially to Russia?
Well, very much so. If you see when the day the administration came into power, Trump has almost been singing the hymn Russia wanted the world to listen, especially when this particular conflict. Trump blamed Zelensky for starting this particular conflict when it was not rightfully so, if one takes a look at facts. But Trump in the chair, trying to bring peace in this Russia-Ukraine conflict is something that Russia enjoys. For the simple reason, there are two, three things that Russia wants that Trump has agreed in principle, and I think Trump has made that very clear to Zelensky. One, the land annexed is not going to come back to you. It's very clear. Second, Ukraine's biggest achievement that it was looking forward to from this conflict was to become a part of NATO. That Russia has clearly objected, and I think Trump has made it very clear to Zelensky, forget about it. Don't even think that you're somewhere near close to that. Your membership, you have applied for it. Let's leave it there. That's out of the table. So Russia has more to gain, and purely also in terms of how the annexed land, that's where most of the rare minerals are. There are close to 22 of the 36 rare minerals that the EU speaks about that are very much in the areas that Russia is annexed. Many parts of the annexed land that Russia has, that's where the rare minerals are. That's why that rare minerals deal that almost the world knew about, that America said, we do so much for you, give something in back for all the expenses that we bear. Close to 1 trillion of rare minerals that the Trump administration has somewhere, done some estimates available in Ukraine. 350 billion is what Trump was asking. That was off the table for the simple reason Ukraine understands that particular rare minerals that they are speaking about, many of them are in the annexed land that Russia holds. So, Ukraine has more to lose, especially in this entire drama, and Russia understands that clearly. And Russia is going to focus more and Russia is back on the table for the simple reason Russia believes that the US is doing the talking, that Russia likes the world to listen. And if you even see that particular meeting that Macron had, along with United Kingdom, that took place in London, Russia suddenly blamed for the world's problem has been created by the European Union. So the entire shift that Russia had about blaming US for all the problems that Russia and Ukraine were facing, suddenly European Union was blamed for it. I think there is a change in stance that even Russia has taken. I think Russia understands the dynamics of this particular ceasefire deal. Russia also knows that they have been troubled. They have been pinned to the wall, especially when it comes to sanctions being put on them. They are looking for some kind of leeway, some kind of window to breathe easy. And I think this particular ceasefire opens a window of hope for Russia, because, Russia would like to get their house in order before things spill over. And I think that's where Putin would love to sign on this dotted line, because remember, it's US that's giving all the guarantees to both the nations. And I think USA will have more to lose, especially in the world order, if this particular deal, falls off or, goes off the table.
All right, Anil, we'll leave it here. Thank you so much for joining in with those details and those insights. Let's turn focus to Chile now. Tensions escalated into violence as artisanal fishermen clashed with police outside the Chilean Congress in Valparaiso, protesting a bill redistributing fishing quotas between industrial and small-scale fishing operations. Demonstrators erected flaming barricades near the congressional building, hurling objects at riot police, who responded by deploying water cannons and tear gas to disperse the crowd. At the heart of the conflict is the proposed fishing bill, which protesters claim would give a small group of industrial actors control of the market, which would disadvantage artisanal fishermen. The small-scale fishing sector has two primary demands: protecting its existing fishing quotas and maintaining the current ban on industrial trawling, which it argues depletes fish stocks and damages marine ecosystem. Former Filipino President Rodrigo Duterte was arrested and flown to The Hague to face International Criminal Court charges of crime against humanity for his deadly drug crackdown. Rodrigo Duterte, an ex-mayor and former prosecutor who led the Philippines from 2016 to 2022, was arrested at a Manila airport early on Tuesday in a major step in the ICC's investigation into thousands of killings in an anti-drugs crackdown. According to police, 6,200 suspects were killed during anti-drug operations under his presidency that they say ended in shootouts. The arrest caused outrage among the family, loyalists and supporters of the still popular Duterte, who called it an affront to Philippine sovereignty. Philippine Vice President Sara Duterte, the daughter of former President Rodrigo Duterte, said that her father's arrest has no legal basis. She said that she will be traveling to The Hague and assist with the legal defense of her father.
There is no legal basis at all to turn over to endorse the president or the former president to the International Criminal Court. If they are looking for justice, there's no justice here.
Colombian President Gustavo Petro decided to call a national referendum so that voters can weigh in on his embattled health and labor reforms amid a lack of support for the proposals in the country's legislature. The president did not immediately specify whether the reforms would be withdrawn from Congress, where he has struggled to push through the bills, which he says are necessary to fight deep inequality and lower poverty. The long-stalled reform to the health sector aims to strip power from insurers and expand access to healthcare, while the labor reform would reduce working hours and boost overtime pay. Petro's decision came hours after 8 members of a 14-member Senate committee announced that they would present a proposal to reject the government's proposed labor reform for a second time. Defense Minister said on Tuesday that he will focus on taking back the territory lost to the rebel groups that have forced thousands to flee their homes this year. Pedro Arnulfo Sanchez is sworn in by President Gustavo Petro during a military ceremony in Bogota. In the address to the nation's troops, Pedro Sanchez said that it was time for Colombia's military to strengthen national sovereignty and protect the nation's population. The retired general hinted that Colombia's military, which had been recently asked to refrain from attacking rebel groups by the nation's government, will now take a more offensive role.
General del Ministerio de Defensa Nacional y Cargos de Defensa, Juliana Coronado.
And now we get to the latest on what's going on in the continent of Africa. Talks between DMRC and the M23 armed group that has captured swaths of Central African countries' volatile east will take place in Luanda soon. Angola would attempt to broker direct talks between DMRC and Rwanda-backed M23 rebels in the coming days. Peace talks have stalled over Congo President Felix Tshisekedi's repeated refusal to engage in dialogue with M23, which, backed by Rwandan troops, has carried out a lightning offensive in eastern DRC. The U-turn comes after Tshisekedi met Angolan counterpart João Lourenço on Tuesday to discuss the conflict. Since January, the two major cities of eastern DRC, Goma and Bukavu, have fallen into the hands of M23 group, which took up arms again in 2021. Intense storms battered central Florida as intense moment captured in video debris saw flying, trees bending and heavy rain and wind pounding on vehicles. The National Weather Service said EF2 tornado impacted portions of Seminole County on Monday. According to the Weather Channel, the tornado struck around 9:30 a.m. local time with winds reaching 120 miles per hour. The storm left widespread damage with several homes affected and trees uprooted across the area. Nusantara fashion, a distinctive style from Indonesia, is gaining international recognition. 5 Indonesian designers showcased their creations at Houston, Indonesia Fashion Runway in the US. The event emphasized on Indonesia's commitment to cultural sustainability and innovation in fashion, focusing on environmental conservation by transforming textile waste into art. One of the Indonesian designers displayed batik dyeing techniques using wax, resin, and woven fabric with handmade applications, creating eco-friendly clothing rich in detail. The intricate process of applying batik to velvet fabric resulted in vibrant colors, symbolizing the patience and wisdom of its weavers. Tariffs imposed by US President Donald Trump on imports of steel and aluminium have taken effect from today. The run-up to the tariff deadline came with some drama on Tuesday as Trump threatened Canada with doubling the duty to 50% on its steel and aluminium exports to the US. But Trump backtracked on his 50% tariff threat to Canada just hours after meeting it. Here's a report. Tariff threats and counter-threats turned into a verbal duel match between Canada and the US as North America remains on the edge in face of a threatening trade war. US President Donald Trump backed down from his threats to impose a 50% tariff on Canadian steel, aluminium and electricity after Premier of Ontario, Doug Ford, announced that it would temporarily suspend its plan to charge a 25% tariff on electricity. After a day of intense market fluctuations, US Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick, Canada's Finance Minister Dominic Lee-Blanc and Ontario Premier Doug Ford confirmed that they would meet on Thursday to discuss renegotiating the USMCA trade agreement.
There's a point that both parties are heated and the temperature needs to come down. And I thought this was the right decision. They understand how serious we are about the electricity and the tariffs. And rather than going back and forth and having threats to each other, we have both agreed, let cooler heads prevail. We need to sit down and move this forward. But if he continues with the aluminum and the steel, I just got off the phone with Minister LeBlanc, they will respond dollar for dollar, tariff for tariff.
Trump had ordered his administration to double down the tariffs of 25% on all Canadian steel and aluminium imports after Ontario Premier Ford said that he would impose a surcharge on electricity imports to the United States.
The right thing to do is what we're doing. We're going to get our jobs back, and we're not going to be left at. Now, I will say this, that already Canada, and I respect very much. As you know, there's a very strong man in Canada who said he was going to charge a surcharge or a tariff on electricity coming into our country. He has called and he said he's not going to do that. Okay, he's not going to do that.
Trump had also hinted at declaring a national electricity emergency in states affected by Ontario's surcharge. Meanwhile, he continued to threaten substantial tariffs on cars from Canada, set to begin on April 2nd. Mark Carney, who will be sworn in as Justin Trudeau's replacement in the coming days, continues to take a tough stand against Trump's policies.
There's someone who's trying to do the opposite. There's someone who's trying to weaken our economy. Donald Trump. And Donald Trump, as we know, has put, as the Prime Minister just said, unjustified tariffs on what we build, on what we sell, on how we make a living. He's attacking Canadian families, workers, and businesses, and we cannot let him succeed. And we won't. We won't.
Another US ally and a key partner in the Quad, Australia, also voiced its disappointment over tariff on steel and aluminium, with Prime Minister Albanese mincing no words about his apparent annoyance.
We've been working very hard on this. Today's news is disappointing, but we don't see this issue as being over by any means. We will continue to press the case for an exemption from Australian exports from these new tariffs.
The dramatic trade war between US and its allies has kept the global markets on the edge, with uncertainties looming over North American industries. Anamika Pandey's report, TD India. The US Department of Education, NASA and other agencies are facing deep staff cuts as part of US President Donald Trump's push to reduce government spending. With thousands of jobs on the line and vital programs in jeopardy, what does this mean for the future of American education, science and public services? Here's a report by DD India's Harshit Oberoi.
In a move that could signal the beginning of the end of the US Department of Education, nearly half of its workforce is being laid off. The department, which oversees student loans, civil rights protections, and funding for underprivileged schools, has been under threat since President Trump took office. Education Secretary Linda McMahon confirmed today that the cuts are part of a broader plan to dismantle the department altogether. A statement from the department describes the layoffs as part of its final mission, referencing the administration's long-standing goal of returning education oversight to state governments. Critics argue that dismantling the department through budget cuts rather than congressional approval is an attempt to bypass legal roadblocks. Meanwhile, NASA is also facing deep cuts. Among those departing are Chief Scientist Catherine Calvin and Chief Technologist A.C. Karania. With NASA playing a central role in climate monitoring and space exploration, the loss of its policy and research division raises concerns about the future direction of the agency. More than 100,000 federal jobs have already been eliminated, and agencies are offering early retirement incentives to push employees out voluntarily. The Trump administration insists the layoffs will make government leaner and more efficient, but opposition is mounting. With all federal agencies ordered to submit their next round of layoffs planned by Thursday, the scale of government restructuring is far from over. Harshit Oberoi's report, DD India.
President Donald Trump responds to plummeting Tesla share prices by briefly turning the White House into a showroom, announcing that he is buying one of the electric cars manufactured by close advisor Elon Musk. He further said that he will label violence against Tesla dealership domestic terrorism as he appeared with Tesla CEO Elon Musk to show support amid recent Tesla takedown protests and the slump in the company's stock price. Musk said Tesla should double its vehicle output in the United States in the next 2 years while speaking at the White House with Trump.
He has never asked me for a favor. He didn't ask me for this. I said, you know, Elon, I don't like what's happening to you. And Tesla is a great company. I don't like what's happening. It's, from our standpoint, American cars, American made. He employs thousands of people. And let me tell you, you do it to Tesla and you do it to any company, we're going to catch you and you're going to go through hell.
Mukesh Ambani's Reliance Jio has said that it has signed a deal with Elon Musk's SpaceX to bring Starlink satellite internet services to India. The deal follows a similar partnership between Starlink and number 2 telecom player Bharti Airtel announced for the India market a day before. Both deals are conditional upon Starlink obtaining government approval to begin operations in the country. Under the deal announced on Wednesday, Jio Platforms, India's largest telecom operator, will offer Starlink equipment in its retail outlets and online stores and will provide installation support for the devices. The International Monetary Fund has approved an additional $1.3 billion assistance program for Egypt under its Resilience and Sustainability Facility meant to mitigate the impact of climate change. The fund's executive board also completed the 4th review of an ongoing aid program, allowing for the immediate disbursement of $1.2 billion to Cairo and bringing the total funds already disbursed to $8 billion. Egypt is crippled by a huge external debt, which has quadrupled since 2015 to reach $155.2 billion by September 2024. Much of this debt is tied to major infrastructure projects, including the construction of a new capital east of Cairo. You're watching DD India News Hour. Now we'll turn focus to sports. India's Sports Minister Mansukh Mandavia. We'll get you more on that, but here we are getting the visuals from Mauritius, where Prime Minister Narendra Modi is holding a meeting with former Prime Minister of Mauritius, Pravind Jugnauth. And also this is the meeting of Prime Minister Narendra Modi in Mauritius. This is the second day of Prime Minister's visit to Mauritius. And here we see him meeting Mr. Pravind Jugnauth. He is the former Prime Minister of Mauritius. Prime Minister Narendra Modi is in Mauritius on a 2-day visit, and today he will be attending the National Day celebrations of Mauritius. Yesterday, the Prime Minister was given a heartwarming ceremonial welcome at the airport upon his arrival, as he was received by his Mauritius counterpart Naveen Ramgoolam at the airport. In the visuals that are being played at present, we see Prime Minister Narendra Modi and the Indian delegation meeting former Prime Minister Dr. Pravind Jugnauth in Mauritius. Prime Minister has also been awarded the highest civilian honor of Mauritius yesterday. He was bestowed with the highest civilian honor yesterday, and also he attended the community event in Mauritius. This is indeed an important visit of the Prime Minister, as we see both the countries have completed the establishment of diplomatic relations that was seen in 1948, and since then the relationship between the two countries has always strengthened, as has been on the uptick. Prime Minister Narendra Modi here meeting former Prime Minister Pravind Jugnauth, the former Prime Minister of Mauritius, Pravind Jugnauth. Pravind Kumar Jugnauth, he is the former Prime Minister of Mauritius. He is currently the leader of the MSM there, and it was in 2017 that he assumed the Prime Ministership of Mauritius, and after that he again became the Prime Minister in 2019. It was until 2024 that he remained the Prime Minister of Mauritius, and here we see Prime Minister Pravind Jugnauth meeting Prime Minister Narendra Modi in Mauritius. Prime Minister Narendra Modi will be having an important second day in Mauritius today as well. He will be attending the National Day celebrations of Mauritius, and also he will be holding bilateral meetings. The first of the day, we saw him meeting former Prime Minister of Mauritius, Dr. Praveen Jagannath, and we'll also keep you updated with other important engagements of the Prime Minister in Mauritius through the day. As of now, that's it in this edition of DD India News Hour, but let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those of you on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on the DD India mobile app. This app is available on both Android and iOS platforms. You can download the respective QR code. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Preeti Kaur signing off, and from all of us in Delhi, thanks for watching DD India News Hour.